Samsung vs LG, the in-laws who turned into lifelong rivals. Cold open, two logos walk into a Korean home. Two logos walk into a Korean living room. One is already on the TV. The other is inside the TV. And the person sitting on the sofa, without realizing it, has joined a war that started long before OLED, long before smartphones. Back when the battleground was something quieter. Family pride. Because Samsung and LG weren't born as enemies. They were, almost relatives. And that's exactly why this rivalry never ends. Not because it's business. Because it's identity. Tonight, we don't tell a tech story. We tell a story about how a country built two giants. And how the giants spent half a century sharpening each other like knives. Fragment I, before the tech, there was the family. In the West, corporate rivals feel like competitors. In Korea, corporate rivals can feel like clans. The origin story gets told in different ways depending on who's speaking. But the emotional core is consistent. Samsung's founding family and LG's founding family were once close, socially, culturally, even linked through marriage. KhamerTimesKH.com. Which means the rivalry didn't begin as a strategy. It began as a rupture. And ruptures don't fade. They echo. So when people say Samsung versus LG, they imagine product comparisons. But the real contest is something more primitive. Who gets to represent Korea's future? Fragment 2, the first rule of gentlemen, don't enter my territory. There's a certain kind of friendship that only survives if boundaries are respected. And there's a certain kind of ambition that cannot tolerate boundaries. When one side expands into the other side's territory, you don't just get competition. You get betrayal. In the old stories, this is where the mood changes. Because in a family-like relationship, crossing the line is never just business. It's a statement. I don't need your permission to become bigger than you. And once that statement is made, every innovation becomes personal. Fragment 3, Korea's real product was discipline. Here's what outsiders miss. Samsung and LG are not just companies. They're the kind of institutions that shape national rhythms. Recruitment cycles. University pipelines. Supplier ecosystems. Global export identity. They represent a specific Korean idea. You can industrialize a nation through disciplined obsession. And when you put two disciplined obsessions side by side, you don't get peace. You get escalation. Fragment 4, the war that moves, home appliances, screens, phones, chips. This rivalry is fascinating because the battlefield keeps moving. First it looks like home appliances. Then it becomes TVs and displays. Then it becomes phones. Then it becomes components and supply chains. And the twist is, sometimes one company wins the headline war, while the other wins the invisible war. Because in modern tech, the power isn't only in what you sell. It's in what you supply. So the rivalry becomes less like a boxing match, and more like chess played at factory scale. Fragment V, when competition turns into theater. There's a moment where rivalry stops being purely technical and starts becoming psychological performance. One of the most symbolic episodes happened in 2014, around a major European consumer electronics show season. Samsung accused LG executives of deliberately damaging washing machines on display. A story so absurd it sounds like satire. But it triggered real investigations and raids. Reuters. Think about what that means. These are not scrappy startups fighting for oxygen. These are national champions. Fighting over the humiliation of a showroom moment. This is what happens when your brand isn't a logo anymore. It's your face. And nobody wants to lose face. Fragment 6, The Brutal Truth, Rivalry Makes You Better. Here's the uncomfortable question. What if Samsung needed LG to become Samsung? And what if LG needed Samsung to become LG? Because rivalry creates a certain kind of pressure that comfort never produces. It forces faster learning. It forces deeper quality control. It forces you to build systems that survive attacks. A rival is not only your enemy. A rival is your training partner, the one who doesn't let you get lazy. In that sense, this feud, however exhausting, was also a national engine. Fragment 7, Two Giants, Two Models of Survival. Over time, their strategies diverged. LG became legendary in areas where craftsmanship and experience matter. Screens, appliances, home living, design-led consumer value. Samsung became legendary in areas where scale and vertical integration matter. Mass manufacturing, global distribution, and huge bets on foundational tech. Even in recent years, you can see the scale difference in reported financials. Samsung's 2025 results, reported figures, highlight a company operating at enormous industrial range, revenue measured in hundreds of trillions of KRW. LG's recent reported full-year results still show a massive global player, but with a different profile and margin story. This isn't who's better. It's two survival philosophies. One becomes a machine. One becomes a craft empire. And the tension between machine and craft is ancient. Fragment 8, The Secret Ending, They Can't Fully Escape Each Other. Here's the part that makes the story feel almost mythic. No matter how hard they compete, they live inside the same national ecosystem. They recruit from the same talent pools. They influence the same industrial policy conversations. They fight in the same global arenas. And the deeper truth is, a rival is not someone you destroy. A rival is someone who stays. Because if they disappear, you lose the mirror that keeps you sharp. The war continues not because it's profitable to hate, but because it's terrifying to win and then realize there's no one left to push you. Closing, what this rivalry teaches you, without preaching. If you live long enough, you discover something strange. Some of your greatest enemies are also your greatest sculptors. They carve away your excuses. They expose your weak habits. They drag you into a higher standard, whether you like it or not. Samsung versus LG isn't only a business rivalry. It's a human pattern. Two forces born close enough to understand each other. Too proud to bow. Too similar to ignore. And too necessary to end. And maybe that's the real reason this story holds attention for decades. Because under the logos, it's the same old drama. Family, pride, betrayal, obsession, and the refusal to be second. If you want, in the next episode, we'll zoom in on the most cinematic part of this war. The screen wars, where the fight isn't about technology. It's about what kind of reality people will live inside.